Hello there, everyone. This is Mr. Brass, and you know, I thought I would get a quick video out there where I give my response to the pro-lifers are hypocrite argument. Now, basically, the argument is that pro-lifers are hypocrites because they don't support, let's say, socialist, government programs or socialist-like government programs, whatever you want to call them. Like they don't support, they don't support like Medicare for all, and food stamps, welfare, etc., etc., etc. Now, with that in particular, there are a number of problems. For one, you're seriously asking a pro-lifer, and I mean this seriously, you're asking a pro-lifer and you're telling them, if you were really pro-life, you would be for the government putting a gun to someone's head and forcing them to give money under the pretense that it's going to help someone else. And I said it, under the pretense, under the premise that it will help someone else. You don't know that. As far as you know, the money that you give to the government, the specific money that you give to the government under the premise to help someone, could be wiped by someone's ass and some bureaucrat in office. That money could be used to wipe their ass. You don't know that. The bureaucrats get their cut of that money, and voila, at best you might get $1 or $2 that actually goes to something. But even assuming that your entire check does, in fact, doesn't go through the bureaucrats and actually does go to the people you say it do, you're still under the premise that you're telling pro-lifers that if you were really pro-life, you would support the government putting a gun to someone's head and telling, that they have to put this money in or grandma will die. That's what you're seriously telling them. That's, for one, a bad argument. Two, even if I conceded the morality of such programs, at least in principle, for one, the burden of proof would be on the liberals or whoever makes the argument to prove that these programs are actually good and actually work as intended. If the programs suck and don't work as intended, then why would a pro-lifer have to accept them? So the burden of proof will be on. So pro-choicers get themselves into a conundrum where they have to prove more than they want to prove. Because in order for their argument to get off the ground, they, for one, have to prove that these programs have these beneficial effects like they want them to say. And two, they have to prove that even if it did have the beneficial effects that it says, that it would be all right to put a gun to someone's head and force them to give the money in order to have those beneficial effects. So that's premise one, that they have to get through their skull on. Now, I also like to point out this. Pro-lifers could be objectively the most hypocritical and evil people on the face of the planet. They could be Darth fucking Vader or any fictional villain you can think of. But that would not defeat the argument that abortion is wrong. Because it takes away someone with a future like ours. So, that, and the fact that it kills a human being. So, you are faced with that. So it does nothing in the long-term effect to actually address the pro-life argument. Like I said, for one, the liberals or whoever, it could be a conservative in theory, they make these arguments for welfare and all these other things and say pro-lifers should support them. Well, first off, they have to prove that these things have the beneficial effects that they say they do. And two, like I said, they would have to prove that even if they do have those beneficial effects, that it would be okay to put a gun to someone's head in order to get them. So, and they, and say how somehow doing that would not contradict the pro-life stance. So that is just one thing to consider. So that's what, and that's like I said, pro-lifers could be the most evil people on the face of the earth. That does not address the arguments that they give. Like, saying you're a hypocrite, therefore you are wrong, is a logical fallacy. It's the tu quo fallacy or the appeal to hypocrisy fallacy. I mean, if a man says 2 + 2 = 4 because he uses the deduction and the rules that are followed, by mathematicians worldwide, he comes to the conclusion that 2 + 2 = 4. However, for some reason, this guy does not apply the same exact rules to 4 + 4, and he says it's 24. Would we say that because the guy is a hypocrite in how he does math, that therefore his belief that 2 + 2 = 4 is wrong? Obviously not. A hypocrite can be correct, even if they perhaps are wrong on other things. So, it does really nothing. And last but not least, it's a stupid argument because, do pro-choicers really want pro-lifers to be consistent? Like, seriously, do you actually want pro-lifers to be consistent? I don't honestly think, as much as pro-choicers say and seem to imply that they want pro-lifers to be consistent, they don't actually want to. They don't actually want pro-lifers to be consistent. If pro-lifers were, let's say, maximally consistent, they would want to dedicate even more resources, and in fact, one could say dedicate all resources to abolishing abortion, or at least the most resources you could without crashing the society. Or you would say that, the pro-lifers that burn down hospitals and those Planned Parenthood centers, they're being consistent because they believe innocent life is being taken, and they're responding how they would if they knew any other innocent human life was being taken. So, really, now, I don't endorse that for one, but I'm just saying, if you were to follow that logic to where it naturally leads, you would see that pro-choicers don't actually want pro-lifers to be consistent. Because being consistent would actually lead to more harms than the pro-choicer would want. So it's a stupid argument for a number of reasons, because, just to get a quick rundown. One, obviously, you'd have to prove the liberal policies work as intended and that the methods used of getting it are legitimate for pro-lifers to use. Two, obviously, the hypocrisy argument is a fallacy. A pro-lifer can be a hypocrite and that not affect their argument at all. And it just goes how it is. I also like to say, lastly, that there are actually pro-lifers that actually do support all those liberal policies. So when a pro-choicer makes this idea in their head, they are basically assuming the pro-lifers' political positions without even talking to them about them, which is a mistake. I know socialists that are pro-life. I know communists that are pro-life. I know liberals, Democrats, etc. that are pro-life, and they agree with all the programs. So there are numerous flaws. I'm going for a walk, so my memory might be tired, which is why I didn't do the entire list before, but anyone that's listened to this video knows where I'm getting at. The argument that pro-lifers are hypocrite does not work. And I really think it should be buried. Well, that is all for today. This is Mr. Brass saying goodbye and get wise.